Mick Jagger was one of the many people Baron Wolman shot for Rolling Stone. For 3 years as their chief photographer, he documented flower power. These days, Baron Wolman likes to shoot a different kind of power. He's become known as an expert and leading exponent of the aerial shot. He shoots most of his pictures from the controls of his own plane. Once it was the highs of musicians like Jimi Hendrix. Today the highs are Wolman's as he finds patterns in people on a beach. Crowd shots now, crowd shots then. World of Photography visited Baron Wolman at his home base in Marin County, California.
The other ones that the other color was well before the snow season. That was all the snow that was left from last year, so trying to make it look like in the middle of January. That was a very grainy day. And there's Death Valley. I'd love to go back and do some, but it's so hot. It was 105 yesterday in Death Valley. One of the real joys of photography, too, and one of the reasons that people have it as a hobby is that it allows you to explore new subjects, allows you to do new things, and you know, when I get tired of photography, it's because I'm doing the same things over and over again. Like at Rolling Stone, I was doing rock and roll musicians over and over and over, and I wanted a new subject. And this aerial photography provided a wonderful new perspective on everyday events and on everyday scenes. I mean, San Francisco is wonderful on the streets of San Francisco, but it is even better overhead. You get all the relationships between the city and the water and the hills and the cable cars. Everything kind of falls in this wonderful new perspective. Plus the fact that, you know, a lot of people still have a certain amount of fear of going up in an airplane, and when they go from San Francisco to New York, they're at 39,000 feet. What can they see? So you don't have a lot of people doing these pictures. These pictures haven't become commonplace, and certainly to me they weren't commonplace. So here was a wonderful new opportunity as a photographer, and a wonderful opportunity as a photographer to show people a new perspective on their everyday life. One of the things that is so surprising is how little special equipment you needed to be an aerial photographer. I personally use a 35mm camera with motor drive, and my standard lenses are a 35mm lens, a 50mm lens, an 85mm lens, a 105, and sometimes a 180. Although it's difficult to use a long lens from an airplane because the vibration of the plane is magnified through the long lens. In order to deal with that, I have a gyro stabilizer that I put on the bottom of the camera, which helps to stabilize the camera somewhat, although you can't eliminate all of the vibration of the helicopter or the airplane, whatever you're in. The thing about the gyro stabilizer, it just means your odds of getting good pictures are greater, and you can shoot it at a slower shutter speed. But most of the time, I shoot it at 250th, between 8 and 11. Kodachrome 64 is my standard film because I try to simplify everything, keep everything standard. Even at dusk shots, which are the really pretty ones, where the sky is acting like this giant light box and the city is beginning to light up, and the balance between the lights of the city and the lights of the sky is just perfect, you can still use 64 if you're careful. Sometimes I've gotten great shots at a 30th of a second or at a 15th of a second. Now, I don't get many on a roll going that slow, but it's still possible using a lens with, 1.4 lens or something. During the day, I use, if it's really contrasty light, I'll add an 81A or an 81B filter to kind of soften the contrast. Otherwise, the only other special piece of equipment I use is a polarizer, which is wonderful on it, where you have clouds, it accentuates the clouds and deepens the color and can do stuff with the water. But it's very simple. I mean, you don't need complicated equipment to take wonderful pictures from the air. And anybody that goes up in a plane, I mean, you can take a ride. I mean, anybody can be an aerial photographer. They can go out to their airport, to their local airport. They can hire a plane. It costs them probably $60, $75 for an hour of flying around with a professional pilot. You open the window of the plane and look down and take pictures. It's very simple. You don't need complicated equipment. You can take a simple 35mm camera, regular film that you buy at the store, whether it's transparency film or print film, and get wonderful pictures. You just have to remember that there's certain times of the day that pictures are going to look better, like in the early morning and in the late afternoon, because you get shadows, and the shadows help define what you see on the ground. They also make wonderful graphic patterns, and the design relationship becomes very exciting when you have the shadows to play with. At high noon, the sun is pointing right down, you got no shadows, you can hardly tell what you're seeing. But, I mean, it's just so much fun in any event to go flying, much less as a photographer, to go up and in some strange city and get up in the plane and open the window and start taking pictures. As far as the aircraft itself, the best plane to shoot from, obviously, is a Cessna or a Piper, which has a Piper Cub, not the new Pipers, but has the wing over the pilot so that you're not shooting down at the wing. You don't have to go inverted in order to take pictures. Cessnas are at every airport. You just have to make sure you get a Cessna that the window opens. You don't have to take the door off. Although my last assignment, the guy insisted on taking the door off the Cessna, so there was this wonderful, huge space between me and the ground. And I think the only thing I lost with the door open was a lens shade. I lost one lens shade, it blew out. One of the real surprises about aerial photography is that you don't need some complicated piece of equipment to hold the camera when you're in the plane. I mean, there are things that the movie makers use to put into a helicopter to hold a huge movie camera in order to keep it stable as the helicopter is flying around. But for still photographers, it's not necessary because, surprisingly enough, the body acts as a very good vibration damper. So I hand-hold everything, and a lot of the vibration of the airplane is kind of dampened through my body. You've got to make sure you don't put your elbows on the window of the plane or lean the camera against the plane at all, because then the vibration goes directly to the camera. But the way it is now, all the vibration of the airplane goes up, starts up through my body. By the time it reaches the camera, for the most part, it's gone. And, you know, that, I'm telling you, the thing about aerial photography is that it's simple and it's easy and it's not very expensive to get really wonderful pictures. I know my pictures, I found lots of uses for them. They've been on the covers of airline magazines, they've been in books, and now I've got them in calendars because I have this publishing company that I started, and we're producing calendars for corporate clients, we're producing retail calendars, and this is the 4th year I will have done California from the Air, this calendar of aerial shots of California from the air. Most of my aerial photos have been taken in California because obviously I'm in California and it's close to home, and California has such a varied landscape. I mean, you can go to desert, you can go to seashore, you can go to mountains, you can go anywhere. And one day I wanted to go down to Santa Cruz, which is just south of San Francisco, because I wanted some pictures of a small amusement park there, which has a little roller coaster. And I had shot one picture there, but I never quite liked it. And it was a holiday weekend. I knew there'd be a lot of people down there. So I climbed in the plane and went down there, had a couple of friends along. I said, come on, we're just going to shoot some pictures. And we got there, and the fog, the good old California fog, had just moved across the shore and covered up the amusement park. And so unhappy. I mean, it would have been a perfect shot. I was like, oh gosh, it was late in the day. The light was just about right. I mean, I had timed it correctly, but I missed it. You know, there was nothing I could do. The fog was there, it covered up the subject, and so we headed on home. Anyhow, on the way home, we were crossing the Golden Gate Bridge, and that particular day, the fog was quite low. I mean, the fog often goes a couple of thousand feet high and obscures the Golden Gate Bridge and the city totally. Well, that day, the fog was a very thin layer, and the top of the fog was below the towers of the Golden Gate Bridge. We got to the Golden Gate Bridge, and the towers were just peeking up between the fog. The sun was setting. The color was incredible, and it was like somebody had given us a gift to replace the shot we didn't get, to give us a gift of an even better shot. This is far and away the best picture I've ever taken from the air, because there is nothing I could do to this picture to improve it. It's emotionally strong, it's technically strong. If you look closely, you'll see that the tower, the north tower of the bridge, is exactly centered in this little puff of fog that is coming across the hills of Marin County. Now, mind you, we're traveling at 100 miles an hour, and to get that centered just like that is, I mean, it was a stroke of luck. And that's typical of what happens when you're taking aerial pictures. When you're going so fast, things happen so quickly that if you have seen it, the picture, in the viewfinder, you've missed it on the film, because you have to learn to anticipate the developing picture. I mean, developing in the sense that it's coming up to the viewfinder and passing through. It's always in motion. It's a heck of a challenge with aerial photography. But this day, it just was so perfect. And then we made circle after circle, and I got pictures of the fog from this side and from that side, and the city in the background. But this one picture has been the most successful aerial picture I've ever taken. It's been on the cover of United Airlines In-Flight magazine. It's been used for the state of California to promote tourism. It's been used as posters. But it justifiably. I mean, I'm really proud of that. But on the other hand, I also know it was just an accident that was, you know, that was a gift to me.